What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark, MyMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today I'm going to do a review of Silo, Season 2, Episode 5. His name is Solo. It's very important that you remember that he is the Shadow. He is the tech Shadow. That is what he is. Never question it. We learned that. Um, this episode was a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot happened in this episode. My God. So just to really sort of quickly recap, because not that much happened for Juliet and Solo, so we'll talk about them first. Basically, Solo's out from his hiding spot now, and the problem with his silo is that because of what happened, the water's been rising, which is why so much of it is underwater. And he's calculated that he has a certain amount of time before, I guess, he's underwater. And so he's hoping that Juliet has a way of fixing it. So he's trying to encourage her to help. But she's more concerned about, she's like, if I don't get back to my silo, everybody could be dead. I have 10 months to figure out how to fix you. I might only have days to figure out how to fix mine, if not less. So she's very much living in the moment. She's exhausted. She doesn't feel well. She mentions a couple times, and he sees it in her too, that she doesn't look well. So I kind of expected her to just pass out. Just be totally honest. At a certain point, I expected her to just pass out. Um, but she finds this like manifest, and there's a scene where he tells her what his real name was, but then she's going through these apartments, and then she finds that person's apartment, so she knows it's not him, so she knows that that's not his name. And so when she brings it up, she learns really quickly not to. Solo goes quickly, not just from 1 to 10, but from like 1 to 1 billion in like point minuscule 1 second. Like he immediately just starts screaming at her in this like incredibly unhinged way where I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. You found the wrong button. You pushed the wrong button. Run. You broke him. He's officially broken. He's always felt like he's like weird and on edge, and because he's obviously been around a long, he's been, alone for too long. But Jesus, great acting, by the way. uh, but Jesus, um, and then she kind of like, but then funny thing is, after he's done yelling, he still offers her like the can of soup. He's like, "Here, you look like you need this," and she's like, "No, I think I'm just gonna go lie down. I just don't feel well." And then she like runs. That's kind of a really bad. Meanwhile, back in the other silo, lots of stuff is happening. So after the mob was incited to go chase down the people from the down, what do they call themselves? The down low, the low down below, something like that. The engineering. They they find those people. They kind of split up because the older one, whose name always escapes me, that was sort of like Juliet's mentor and is in the relationship with, they're like, nobody's ever seen you before because you've been held up in this room, and that works in your favor. So get away from us and you can go back to your thing. They're looking for us. They're not looking. They don't even know who you are. Like most people don't even know you exist. So, so she splits, and then immediately her partner gets captured, but surrenders. So she just is not murdered. She just like surrenders, and then the other two run, and they're in this like constant escape. At one point, um, Common's wife, uh, Colette, finds them, and but they're about to be like murdered by this mob, and she's like, no, we need justice for the silo, not just justice here, just blah 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 blah. She gives this giant bullshit thing, and she basically just like takes them aside and like lets them go, and she's you know, I worry for her future, especially considering what Bernard does to Common in this. So they get let go. Eventually, they get down into the down below. We also see. So by the end of the episode, I still think they're not captured. If I'm right, a lot of things happened in this episode. The sheriff, the two of them anyway, Hank and Paul, um, they're out there and they're looking for this Patrick guy, and they find this tunnel, and Patrick has this moment with Paul, and Paul shows him this the image that he took from Juliet's book to try to get Patrick to trust him, and because he wants to know more from Patrick. So it shows them sort of succeeding in the end, because they get this weird message about everything that's going on, and you can see that the two sheriffs are sitting there thinking like, okay, so what's happening here? Because they don't think everything is right in the world either. So they're doing their own investigation that's separate. They're not having to chase down. Bernard clearly wants the mob to take care of this. So then we have the interaction that Bernard has with Common, where he just kind of shows up in Common's house and and just starts making coffee. And then they talk about the pact and everything. And he's like, I can't trust you anymore. You're no longer my shadow, but you're too valuable. So you're now the judge. So that answers my question from my last recap, which was who's going to be the new judge. And I actually didn't think Common was going to be, but I guess he is. I just thought they were going to like show us like another character and be like, well, we're moving you into this position. There is a conversation with the doctor that Bernard has where he touches base with Juliet's father about like his commitment to the silo. And Juliet's father is basically like, you know what, before I was doing all this to protect my family, I have no family anymore. So now I just want to do this legitimately as a doctor. And I'm tired of looking at these things and these families that could be having babies and they're not, and I see that orange and I know what it means. And he knows his bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like he calls Bernard on his bullshit. But through this whole like mob stuff, there's all these people who need to be fixed because they're constantly caught up in the mob. So they have all these scrapes and cuts and bruises and broken bones and stuff. So he's busy. Common moves into the judge's office and feels immediately that his power dynamic has shifted, even though so I think he probably always thought the judge's position was somewhat bullshit. Now he's sort of feeling how bullshit it is. There's somebody that he used to work with that comes in and calls him, judge, and he doesn't have the same level of access to information. He's now being treated a little bit with like kid gloves, So he's annoyed. Everything is different. The dynamic completely has shifted in this episode, and Bernard now doesn't have a shadow. So he does go back and get the hacker that was sent down to the mines, and bring him back up, so that, because obviously the judge didn't tell him before she died why, like, he kept trying to get this little bit of information out of her. What did she know that he needed to know? So knowing that he would be motivated to not return to the mines, he puts him on this task of, and the fact that he may have already seen part of what's on the drive from helping Juliet, he puts him on the task of sort of trying to reassemble the files on the drive, which he starts doing. And we get little tidbits of information for Bernard. The question is, will Bernard honor his, or will he just throw this dude back in the mines? Or will this dude become an ally to Bernard? I don't know. I don't trust Bernard at all. But the weird thing is that I also think Bernard is really driven by the pact. So I don't think he's inherently evil. I think he read a book a long time ago, and I think he's the kind of person that, if he could be educated on it, could change as a character. I think he has potential to be a a villain with a different perspective as Silo progresses, which is what makes him interesting. Is he doesn't just seem like he's evil for the purpose of being evil. He seems like he's evil because he believes he has to be, because the pact is telling him he needs to be. So if he learns something greater than the pact, or like some history, or more knowledge or something, it feels like he could grow from that in either direction. So he's such an interesting character. I love the way that Tim Robbins is playing him. So even though Solo takes the cake this episode for like the 5 seconds where he just goes, whew, just like off the charts, because he's been kind of like a really sort of, I would say, like unhealthy, scraggly, wimpy character, and man, he went all in for like a few seconds. Um, but the nuance and stuff that Tim Robbins brings to his performance is one of the reasons why I love that Tim Robbins is in this show. So it's another great episode for me. I'm a big fan of Silo. I loved doing this week in and week out. I think the audio description is fantastic. Lots of little things that happen. The two that are moving through, they try to, for safe passage, they have this like, I want to say it's like a multi-tool that they trade, and the guy's like, oh, is this Juliet's? And he's like, yeah. And then later on, they have the opportunity, because that guy betrays them, to like take the tool back. So like a lot happens in this episode. This isn't just like objective driven, where they're like, we have this one big task that we have to achieve. They cover a lot. Pretty much every character who is in the silo had at least some moment in this episode, even if even if it was just like a brief commentary, like a flash to them. There was like one of the women that works in the kitchen was like taking food back, and they question her. They're like, "Are you taking food? Why would you take food?" And I was just thinking, I was like, man, they're just trying to rub everybody in this episode. So really good work. I think of Silo season 2, episode 5 an A. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the other side.